Leadership Twin Cities is the Minneapolis Regional Chamber's Community Leadership and Professional Development Program. It began in 1976. It has more than 2,000 program alumni so far, and each year it brings together one cohort of approximately 50 individuals, and those individuals represent bright, engaged leaders from a cross-sector of industries, so as was pointed out by one of the participants in the chat feature. And it's a 9-month-long program. So we go throughout those 9 months and really take deep looks at the critical issues facing our region today. The focus for the program is really on experiential learning. It's focused on small group discussions, interactive discussions with community leaders. So really bringing in the people from our community to have really intimate conversations with the group. So our goal, Sarah, you can go on to the next slide, is to help future leaders be knowledgeable, well-networked, and passionate about the success of our community. I think now more than ever, it's really important that we have a prosperous economy that works for everyone. We need people who lead organizations or are in positions of leadership, whether that be because they are in a position of authority, or perhaps because they are in a position where they are an influencer in their organization or their community. It's not always, we don't always focus on kind of that hierarchical leadership. It's really about personal leadership and being a leader within your networks. It's really important that the people who lead in our community really understand the issues that our community is facing. And we need community leaders who are able to look at situations, look at the challenges through the lens of the whole community, right? And what can be done to pursue a course of action that builds the well-being for everyone. So we feel it's a really important program for all of those reasons. This is the program days. So typically our program is set up by topic, by kind of the issue that we're doing a deep dive on. One of the most, I think, magical things about this program is that it's really volunteer-led. So the people who go through the program one year come back the next year and help create the curriculum for the next class. So it really is, no year is ever the same as the year before. There's some structures that are similar, but it really is a nimble program. It's able to kind of move and change. And so each year is different from previous. But these are kind of how the day structures have been set up in the past. So we start off with a get to know you opportunity. So our kickoff retreat, it's really about building trust, building tools so that we can all talk with one another to have really courageous conversations. It's setting up our own norms as a group and making sure that we're all ready and in a place where we can dive into the work for the remaining 8 program days ahead of us. Then we look at the cultures and communities that make up our region. We spend a day looking at economic development, community safety and justice, healthy communities. That day is focused on a lot of our service organizations and things such as homelessness, affordable housing, health, and health access. Government Day, Education Day, Arts and Culture Day, and then Vision Day is sort of the day where we really come together and not only kind of culminate the program, but we put together a vision going forward as far as a personal vision. What do we want to do with this information going forward? As I mentioned, no 2 program years are the same. However, we'll pull up a list of some of the speakers that we had this past year. And you can kind of take a look through those. Lots of leaders within our community come in and speak. As I mentioned, they change from year to year, but we have our favorites that we get back every year as well. So those were some of the people we had come in and speak to the program this year. And then we also have a very short video to show you, just to share with you a kind of a quick glimpse into some of the program days and the LTC experience. Fantastic, thank you. And that brings us to Stacy. We're pleased to have Stacy with us today. You know, I think for a session like this, I can sit and tell you, and I will share, I am a past participant. I came to Leadership Twin Cities as a participant first. I went through the program in 2009, 2010, and then sat on the steering committee for several years. So I did come up from a participant, but know that now I've been on the other side in the program management role for quite a while. And so always think it's really more helpful for all of you to hear from someone who's actually been through the program recently. And so for that, I'm really grateful to Stacy for joining us today. A little bit about Stacy. She is an associate with Alliance, which is a full-service architecture and design firm. She's a member of the LTC class of 2018-2019. So we probably shared, but we start in September and go through May, so we're over 2 years. Can be complicated sometimes, in helping us keep track of what class we were in. And she now serves on the Leadership Twin Cities steering committee. And I'll let Stacy share just a little bit more about herself, and then I'll give her a couple question prompts so she can kind of provide some insights into what it's like to be a participant in Leadership Twin Cities.
Sure. Thanks, Sherry. So as she mentioned, I am a senior interior designer with Alliance. It's a local architectural firm. And I'm also a mom of 2 boys, 5 and 7 years old, and currently 7 months pregnant with another one, yet to be determined, boy or girl yet. So, and I felt like at the point that I started with LTC was a really good point in my career and life position to really expand my network and also knowledge of what's going on out there. So yeah, that's me.
Good. Well, so maybe you could share for the people on the meeting today, just how has your Leadership Twin Cities experience helped you in your career or in terms of civic engagement?
So being a licensed interior designer, we have associations that we're a part of. IIDA is one of them. And if I were an architect, AIA, American Institute of Architects, is another one. And AIA typically has a leadership program that you can go through professionally. And unfortunately, for my profession, IIDA does not. So my firm has had asked me to pursue LTC as a way to gain that leadership training. And I think their assumption was it was more of an individual training of, you know, emotional intelligence and leadership skills and things like that. And I don't think they really had a good grasp on the reality of truly what I would learn. So I really feel like it's broadened me as a person, in addition to what I bring to my professional life as well. So.
And that's, you know, that's a really good point, and that's something that I think as we talk with people about the program, that we always kind of make that distinction as well. So leadership is in the title. Leadership is certainly a part of all of the program days, but it's really, it's not leadership maybe in what a traditional sense where you would think if you were going to a college course on leadership. Like you said, it's not, these are the steps and the skills, and it's really more about that community leadership, right? Like understanding what's going on in our community and what our role might be, whether it be on a board or a committee or however it might be, is really what the leadership refers to as community leadership. But it's a really important distinction, because we don't want anyone to come in thinking that they're going to come out stamped with, their certificate in leadership. Leadership is a huge component, but it's maybe, it's just not so, it's not maybe the leadership that some organizations might think it is going in, or some people. So that's
and where it really has transferred for me is, if you think of in the kind of work that we do, we're working with many different types of businesses, and so it really gives us a better lens on who's in the room, how do we connect, and what are the issues that may be facing these different kinds of businesses. We work with nonprofits, we work with Fortune 500 companies, et cetera, et cetera. So it really has, for me, giving me much better tools for empathy and understanding when I approach a client. So it's helped me immensely, I would say, to be with LTC.
So we always kind of ask, or what was your favorite day, or what issues did you really become more connected to as part of your experience in leadership?
So in the cohort that I was a part of, we had like formalized group projects that we were given, and we had different subjects that we could consider that would be a hot topic for us. And for me, that was education. My oldest was just going into the school system, and I really didn't feel like I had great tools to understand what he was getting into and the resources. So my group really focused on equity in education. We had a wonderful man that was part of our group, Josh Crossan, who's part of Ed Allies. I think he's the director now, isn't he?
He is now, yeah. He was promoted. Mm-hmm.
Oh, he was a wonderful guide for us. So we spoke at length about the inequities that we're finding in education as far as resources with schools in different locations within a district. Also, the number of counselors that are there. So Josh actually provided us an opportunity to lobby at the Capitol, which I've never done before in my life. And really the focus that we were looking at was the licensure tier system and some of the proposals that they had last year as far as either reducing the number of tier 1 and tier 2 licenses, which provides about 25% of our teachers of color opportunities to be able to teach in the K through 12 system. And we felt it was really important to try and keep, and I think today's atmosphere will definitely attest to that too, that representation matters. So yeah, we were able to go to the state capitol and lobby about that. I was able to meet my local representative and speak with her personally. It was just an incredible opportunity. So
that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah.
So that was obviously a really memorable experience for you. Any final or closing thoughts how the participation in the program has impacted you personally or your professional network?
So I would say from a professional network, it's great. You guys will meet people from all walks of life. And with the kind of work that I do, we certainly meet different kinds of businesses, but I was able to make a connection with one individual that is the head of hiring for a local company. And so I've been able to rely on him as far as when we're looking to hire people in the company, giving me tips and tricks on that. Because I'm not an HR person, right? So I don't have that kind of background, but he's been able to help guide me with that. In addition to, in the year that I went through, there was an individual that is the vice president of development with McGuff Construction. So being in design and architecture, it was a great connection to have with that because we've been able to now partner on future projects. So from a professional standpoint, it's been a really good way to connect as well. So
Very good. Well, thank you for sharing your experiences with the program. And Stacy's going to hang on here while we open it up to your questions and anything that kind of pertains to the user experience, the participant experience, I should say. Stacy is here to provide kind of her insights on that. So we'll go ahead and open it up to questions. You can, like I said, either unmute yourself and just ask your question, or if you feel more comfortable, you're welcome to also type it into the chat feature. And I can give you all just a second. I can kind of start talking about some of the questions that we often receive, but also want to hear from you rather than just rattling off a lot of details. Would love to hear from all of you on the call your questions. So, so Brian asked, has there been any changes made to the program related to COVID-19? So yes, so that is a really great question. Good place to start. And so this program is obviously very heavy on being in person. Towards the end of last year's session, so we just wrapped up in May, we took the sessions virtual. So, you know, we are kind of like all of you in the sense that we're really not sure at this point. You know, we're following the governor's guidelines as to when groups of what size can get together. We are planning dual tracks right now. So we are planning for in-person, but we're also putting a lot of time and energy into virtual. And we have a lot of really creative people who are looking at what that might be. Our final program day was virtual, and we were able to do it in a way in which we still were able to come together and have small group discussions and have it be a really meaningful experience. We also learned a lot from that, you know, as far as how much time can a person spend in front of a computer on a program day, and what can we do? And so we're looking at several options. You know, Stacy had mentioned her small group project, so maybe putting more emphasis on our small groups so that we can get together in person in small groups and then also come together virtually. So we don't have a 100% answer as of now. The program will look different when it starts up in the fall. I myself am excited by what we can do kind of in this virtual space. I think we can really kind of do some new and exciting things that maybe we weren't able to do when we were kind of in a place all together. So we're planning, but we don't have a definitive answer at this point. I would say by the end of June, we will certainly have something. So it's one of those things where if someone is curious, you know, about what the program might look like, I would just say it always looks different every year. This year is going to look a little more different than maybe previous years, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's something that's going to be a really great opportunity for this program to try some new things and have it be just as impactful, if not more so. I don't know. That was a long answer. Yes, things will change. Sorry, I don't have all the answers right now.
Sherry, someone asked, how do you know if now is the right time for you to apply or participate?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, you know, if you are maybe already engaged in a nonprofit or, you know, participating something in your community, maybe you're volunteering with something to do in your faith community or with your local community, and you're kind of looking for more, it's a good time for you. If you feel like you can dedicate the time, because it is a day a month, and it is really important that you're able to participate fully. So if you're looking at the dates and you're thinking, well, I'm going to miss this date for this and this date for this, and I have to be away for this, this might not be the right year for you. You know, I oftentimes tell people if it's one day, you know, your brother's getting married and it happens to fall on one of our program days, that's overcomable, right? Like that's fine. We can catch you up if you miss one day. But if you do look at it and see consistently like, oh, I have a meeting every other month, that's all days on Thursdays, that's probably not the right time for you. Then maybe wait until your schedule changes a little bit. I don't know, Stacy, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. I was just going to jump in. Yeah, sorry.
No.
So, you know, I took that really seriously when I was going through my year. And because every single day is so unique and every single day is so packed full of information that there was one day I wasn't able to make it. I can't remember why. And I felt a sense of loss because there's knowledge that everybody else got that I wasn't able to get. So it's intense, I'm not going to lie, every day, but you leave exhausted, but feeling really, really good about it. So I would highly encourage, yes, if you're able to make that sacrifice, it's going to be worth every day to do it. So.
Does that answer
Great.
the question? Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess someone else asked, kind of going off of that, what qualifications do you look in for applicants as far as leadership goes?
Yep. So we usually, like I said, look for people who maybe already are engaged in their community, whether it be through, volunteer opportunities, or maybe they're taking a role within their company, they're leading an employee group, or they're, volunteering with their company. So someone who already kind of has that servant leadership mentality. And then also who is, in an upward track in their organization or in their career, right? It's not your first position perhaps, but maybe, you're moving into those roles of leadership. We honestly have people who come to us from kind of all stages and places in their lives and career. But I would say for the most part, it's those people that have kind of been in a couple of positions and are really kind of moving into more of those mid-levels of management, senior levels of kind of leadership within their organization.
Great. And then Elise, Sherry had mentioned this, but so for everyone, every session is 1 day long, but then our September retreat is an overnight for 2 days. And then there's a question, are there any limits on having more than one individual participate from a given organization?
So there's not limits per se. We would probably, I don't think we've ever had more than 2 people from the same organization. And those people were often from larger organizations where there were some really different, like if you're from a large organization and you have, a finance division and you also have a totally separate engineering division. And the reason for that is just because it really is about bringing together people from different organizations and industries. And so we don't want it to be, we do look for balance, right? We don't want it to be, to have people only in the interior design industry, because then where's the benefit in that if you already know each other? And so same thing. And so oftentimes what we will do, because we do have more applicants than we have spaces, is we will look to those companies that have had multiple applicants, and we would probably try to narrow it down to 1 applicant from that company. The other thing I will say is that we do give a lot of weight to people who've applied more than once. So if we do get 2 or 3 applicants from one organization, we may decide to put 1 person through 1 year, but then we encourage the person who wasn't selected to apply the following year. We do put weight on that, because oftentimes both people will be great candidates, they'll be great applicants. We just want to make sure that we don't have too much representation from one industry or another in the cohort.
And I'll add real quick too, because I did not get in the first year that I applied. And I know that that was certainly the case because it's a pretty popular program within my field of work. So once I was able to be accepted in, I very much appreciated that balance then once I was in. Understand, okay, I don't want to be in a room of people that I already know. I want to be in a room of people that I don't know and learn and grow from them. So I think it's a really wonderful focus to be able to do that. So.
What other questions do we have, Sarah? I'm trying to think what we haven't been asked. There is a tuition.
Sherry, a quick question. Circling back to the qualifications piece, when you mentioned that you're looking for people who are already kind of engaged, involved in different community activities. I mean, if somebody doesn't necessarily have that and want to use this as a way to get more involved, is that kind of a deal breaker, or is that fine?
No, I would say we've oftentimes had people who have said, you know, or maybe they're new to the area and they've said, you know, in the past, here's what I did, you know, previously where I was, but right now, you know, I'm new to the area and I don't have any current, you know, engagements. Sometimes those are the people that honestly get even more out of the program because they are able to kind of learn about a lot of different issues and kind of figure out where their passion lies for work in our community. So it certainly doesn't take a person out of consideration by any means.
I could say I probably fell more into that, Erin, that group when I applied, at least for the first year, because my involvement really was on some volunteer committees in my local church, and some help, you know, with school a little bit, but nothing too formalized. And but boy, you are very well educated on opportunities when you go through this program. So I wouldn't have that be something that would deter you from considering, because I really feel like it can give you a foundation moving forward into areas that you can really find some passion to put toward too.
Okay, great. Thank you for on that.
For the question.
Yeah.
No one's asked about tuition, but there's a tuition for the program. So let's go through that. So tuition for the program is $2,395 for chamber members, $26.95 for non-member companies. So this covers all the costs, program-related costs. So there's no additional fees outside of the tuition. So curriculum, collateral, site visits. I don't think we've mentioned, but as part of the program, in addition to the program days, there are additional tours called call to actions that are arranged. They're optional. So they're things that if you can't make it, it's fine, but it's additional tours to a lot of kind of behind the scenes places that maybe we couldn't fit into the actual program day. So, you know, for Education Day, we set up tours with a lot of different local schools so that you can kind of go into a school, especially if you haven't been into a school setting for a while. So you can go into a charter school, you can go into a private school, you can go into a public school and kind of hear from administrators and teachers and students there. We do tours with the Guthrie and with MIA for Arts and Culture Day, you know, Mill City Museum. So I think this year there was one at the medical examiner's office. So there's optional tours of kind of places in our community. And those are called call to actions. So those are all included. If it's in person, it would include meals, of course, as well. So that is the tuition. We do also have some scholarship assistance available. So I always encourage people who are interested in the program not to let tuition be any kind of a barrier to applying. When we have candidates that are great fits for the program, we want to make sure that they can participate, and then that's not a barrier. So we do have scholarships available. We also have some payment options and plans. So we work with people on that tuition if it is a barrier. It is a blind process in the sense that everyone applies, people are accepted, and then we go back to see who was accepted, who asked for a scholarship at that time. So we don't use that as any kind of as a factor in whether someone is or is not accepted to the program. In the past, our scholarship assistance has been mainly limited to people who are in nonprofits, small businesses, so 10 employees or less, or government organizations who oftentimes are not allowed to use money, government money, for personal development programs such as this. I anticipate, just because of the financial unrest that has come about because of COVID, that those restrictions will be broadened a little bit by the scholarship committee. Let's see, Sarah, did we have any other questions that came up from this?
I think one thing that came up for me is maybe describing maybe the retreat a little bit, because I know that that was a big question mark when I went out to, what is it, Chaska that we hosted in, and why we do a retreat to kick off the program, and what the value is in that too.
Yeah. So we just find it's really important to get people away from their day-to-day, far enough away that they feel like they can turn off their phones and really focus on building those relationships with their fellow class members, because it is strange, especially as an adult, when you're kind of within your own groups and you know the people you know, to kind of meet 54 other adults who maybe you haven't met before. And so really helping facilitate that that bonding experience is really important for us, and it really translates into how the class proceeds for the rest of the 8 months. So we do think it's important to kind of get people away from their day-to-day and create opportunities to connect.
And what's really fun to see is the relationships that blossom from that first retreat too. I know I've got wonderful friends that I would never have created if I hadn't been through that experience. And so, and to be able to watch last year as a steering committee member, the relationships of that cohort group blossom throughout the year too. And it really is the foundation, I felt, was the retreat, kind of being away from everybody and being in that same kind of uncomfortable initial situation, and then kind of bonding through that too. So yeah,
absolutely. That's a good point. What other questions you guys have for us? Anything? I'm scrolling through my frequently asked questions, and I think we covered a lot of it, but would love to hear from you guys if you have any other questions. Sarah, I think we can go on to the next slide then. So just a little bit of the application timeline. So the applications are due June 26th. We'll be doing applicant interviews, hopefully the week of the 8th through the 15th. That may switch up a little bit just given schedules, but that is our, and they're not in-person interviews. We've traditionally done phone interviews with applicants, and likely that will stay the same. We may open it up to allow people to use a Zoom or other virtual as well, but typically those have been done as phone interviews and not in-person interviews. Then the selection committee meets, reviews the applicants, meets. After that committee is done, then the scholarship committee meets, and then applicants are notified via email about participation by July 24th. And certainly at that time, we would have any updates if we had any changes to the program days based on COVID and that type of thing. So we would have that information by the time we sent out the notifications of acceptance. Looks like we had a question. Sarah, I think I saw one come up. Can you talk more about the small group projects? Yeah, I think Stacy mentioned a little bit about her projects. This is a component that's been a little bit different, again, every year. So what we find is that with a group of 54, we work really hard to create opportunities. Some of them, to get to know everyone in the cohort, but that it can be really helpful to also have kind of a smaller group that you can get to know a little bit better through doing group work. The group projects are typically focused around one of the critical issues that we explore, and we allow a lot of self-direction with the small group projects, in the sense that we facilitate the groups themselves and getting together, but oftentimes kind of leave it a little bit open to the groups as to what they want to do. And we always share with them that, a lot of these are really big, really big issues facing our communities. And so sometimes just the small steps can make a big difference. As Stacy mentioned, her group, took what I'm guessing is you know, people who probably have never gone to the Capitol and lobbied for something to the Capitol and lobbied for a very specific legislative piece, and the impact that that can have on our school system. So that's just one example. Some groups do more of educational pieces where they put together a website to share with facts. Some people just do, not just, some people create education campaigns that they then take back to their places of work and share. So there's a lot of different outcomes from the group projects, and all of the outcomes are okay. It's really about learning, having those small group conversations, and looking at what you can do to kind of move the needle on an issue that's facing our community. So we do appreciate your time today. You can always connect with us at leadership@mplschamber.com. You can visit the website, mplschamber.com/leadership. That gives more information about the program.